I believe in, and I'm very sorry for holding my president accountable. Like, apparently, I was just supposed to go along with whatever the man was saying, right? Whatever he was doing, I was just supposed to shill my ass off, right, guys? That's what y'all wanted. All right, then. Of course not.
Thing is that there is no breakthrough. And according to the vice president, well, the bad thing is that they're leaving without a deal. During these talks, it was never going to be easy. We were hearing from various diplomats, various sources, and there was very little concrete information coming out. So there was the first round, then the second round. So we believe there were about 5 rounds, and after every single one of them, there were exchanges of notes between these two sides. So it appears that there is some sort of a wider framework both sides have come towards. I think there is a proposal and a counter proposal from what we gather from JD.
Yeah, I don't see things going. One, where I'm pretty sure we're going back to war, and two, sadly, I kind of seen this coming. I was hoping that things would go in the right direction, but I was just like, I already know what Iran's going to walk in there and want. They're going to want immediate relief of the sanctions. They're going to be able to restrict the Strait of Hormuz by charging fees and all this wild stuff. Yeah, that wasn't going down. But all right, let's go ahead and get into more international media. Shout out Sky News.
A great power of his time. When Churchill described a great power of his time as a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma, he was talking about Russia. But today, that memorable phrase might just as accurately be applied to the paradox that is the United States. Oh. On the one hand, Artemis II brought together over a dozen nations, including Germany, Saudi.
All right, hold on, guys. Let's get over here to Fox News, because finally they're talking about it. I ain't hear nothing from Fox News about this, I'm be real with you, struck down deal.
We've got lots of news to get to.
Be honest, I ain't heard nothing from Fox News. And the reason why I was suspecting that Fox News was going to stay silent for a while over this was, like I said, they were selling the whole illusion that, they begged us for the ceasefire, but you're telling me that they walked away from a ceasefire they begged for? And like I said, it just don't match up to reality. Like, what they're saying, what they're trying to sell the American people is just not matching up.
So let's start. We've got lots of.
Oh, and shout out to my man Daniel Welch. He says, I'm calling it now. This war will last this past year. Damn. Bro, like I said, I hope you're wrong. But then I was hoping I was wrong when I was seeing this war kind of like manifest before my eyes. I was like, oh, yeah, this is looking like we're about to go to war with Iran. Everybody's saying it. People have been calling it out for months. And even I've been eyeing the situation and what's going on in the White House, how we got certain new people around Trump, and how we're honestly not even really trying to negotiate in good faith with Iran. As soon as I seen that, I was just like, yeah, we're going to war with these guys, because we're not even trying to negotiate in good faith. And if we're not trying to do that, then we just want them under our boot, which we're going to have to do that by force, by most likely putting boots on the ground. And I'm not even sure if anybody in the administration want to commit to that.
News to get to. So let's start with that. Starting off with the Operation Epic Fury, Vice President J.D. Vance says U.S. negotiators are likely leaving Pakistan without a deal after marathon talks with Iran came up empty.
We've been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear.
Bro, I'm sorry. Are you dumb? Nobody's giving Iran a pass. It's a war crime at the end of the day. We're not doubting. Nobody's doubting it. Nobody's saying that it's not. We're just telling you, bro, they have the capability to close the Strait of Hormuz, and nobody can stop them from doing so. That's the problem. It's not that we're giving them a pass on it. We're just letting you know their, military strategic advantage. When they're playing this asymmetric warfare, this is one of their key cards. So when Trump said they don't have the cards, well, apparently they got something. So no, we're not giving them a pass. We're just letting you know what it is. And apparently you want to cry about that. So, I mean, that's on you.
Our red lines are, we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
21 hours. Wow. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Inks joining us now from Tel Aviv with the very latest. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. After 21 hours of talks in Islamabad, Pakistan, there is no deal with Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance was joined by Special Envoys Witkoff and Kushner after the meeting and said this.
The simple fact is that we need to see an affirmative commitment that they will not.
Well, honestly, though, no, I got to read this one again. Though it's been on my mind. So shout out to my man Lunatic Libertarian. Said manufacturing a crisis for a concentration of control around centralized entities is reality. Stop participating or have liberty and freedom restricted. So shout out to my man Lunatic Libertarian. I had to do that one over.
Seek a nuclear weapon, and they will not seek the tools that would enable them to quickly achieve a nuclear weapon. That is the core goal of the President of the United States, and that's what we've tried to achieve through these negotiations.
Reports indicate there are still gaps on the issues of uranium enrichment, control of the Strait of Hormuz, and the release of frozen Iranian assets. There are now questions about what comes next amid an ongoing U.S. military buildup across the Middle East that includes more transport planes landing here each day. President Trump spoke over the weekend about the situation.
Let me just tell you, we win, no matter what. We've defeated their military. They have no navy. 158 ships are underwater, undersea. All of their minesweepers and all of their, they call them mine droppers. Can you imagine? A country has 28 mine droppers. You think that's nice? With all of that being said, they're all defeated, by the way. They're all at the bottom of the sea.
As the talks were ongoing in Islamabad, Israel and Hezbollah continued to trade blows, with Hezbollah launching drones and rockets into northern Israel and the Israelis striking southern Lebanon.
All right, now, guys, let's take a little bit of time to, look over these mines. I got a nice little video here. So, guys, make sure you double tap the screen and like the video. Shout out to AI Telly. Let's get into it. Iran's invisible minefield backfires in the Strait of Hormuz. I know, right? They said it backfired. So let's get right into it real quick.
Revolutionary Guard rushed to turn this narrow waterway into a massive minefield.
Full screen.
According to the New York Times, it wasn't a strategic masterstroke. It was pure panic. Under pressure, IRGC teams were just throwing explosives overboard. They were so focused on blocking Western warships that they didn't bother to record GPS coordinates or lay them in any kind of traceable pattern. They didn't just lock the door. They welded it shut, tossed the blueprints. Then nature made it worse. The currents in the strait are brutal. If these mines snap, they could slam into a passing tanker and trigger a total catastrophe. Drifting explosives turning the world's most important shipping lane into a game of Russian roulette. You could sweep a path today, and a mine could float right back into it tomorrow. The result: about 20% of the world's oil is now trapped behind a wall that Iran built but can't take down. This is Strait of Hormuz. It's a massive global choke point, handling roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply. But the IRGC has a new strategy: paid a $2 million toll in crypto.
But crypto or Chinese yuan. Either way, they're trying to de-dollarize, and we don't like that. Oh, guys, make sure to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Let's see if we can get to 150 likes by double tapping that screen.
How do you actually pull that off, especially when your Navy has just lost more than 50 of its prized warships? The answer is simple. You go old school. You bring back World War II style tactics. Enter the Mosquito Fleet. Instead of relying on massive, easy-to-target destroyers, the IRGC Navy uses a swarm of fast inshore attack craft. We're talking about incredibly quick, small fiberglass boats, classes like the Ashura, the Turek, and heavily modified Bog Hammer speedboats. But how do these speedboat attack U.S. warships?
Hey, shout out AJ for sending a silver star for 2 jewels. Appreciate the support.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operates hundreds of small, fast attack craft armed with heavy machine guns, rockets, and anti-ship missiles. The tactic here is simple, but deadly. Instead of trying to fight a U.S. destroyer one-on-one, which they would lose, they deploy dozens of small boats simultaneously from every direction. The goal is to overwhelm the U.S. ship's defensive systems, like the phalanx, by presenting more targets than the ship can track and destroy at once. And they don't stop at military hardware. They actively deploy dual-use craft. To the untrained eye, these look like everyday fishing dhows or commercial trawlers, but underneath, they're secretly outfitted for covered military ops. So how exactly do these tiny boats deploy heavy naval mines? Since they are dedicated, large-scale mine layers, you won't find any high-tech, automated track systems here. Their methods are incredibly low-tech, but in a tight bottleneck like the Strait of Hormuz, they are lethally effective. It usually comes down to the stern drop method. The mines are simply strapped to the back deck of a small boat. Once they get their target coordinates, the crew literally just rolls or pushes these massive explosives right off the stern and into the water. Some of the slightly larger boats might have basic metal rails to help slide them off, but really that's about it. This bare-bones setup is absolutely perfect for hit-and-run tactics. The whole strategy relies on speed and stealth. A small speedboat can dart right into the busy shipping lanes, hide under the cover of darkness, or just blend in with regular civilian traffic. They drop 2 or 3 mines in a matter of seconds and then floor it back to the safety of the Iranian coastline, long before heavy US warships can even get a lock on them. And the weapons themselves. These little boats are tapping into an estimated Iranian stockpile of anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000 devices. They drop everything from simple contact mines, which float near the surface and explode on impact, to advanced bottom mines. Those sink to the shallow seafloor and just wait, patiently listening to detonate the second they detect the acoustic signature of a passing supertanker. How US is using the preemptive capability destructions to strike the 16 mine-laying ships. This is strategy 1. Instead of waiting for the mines to hit the water, which would force dangerous mine clearance operations right under enemy fire, the US took action first. They struck the vessels before they could even deploy. It's a textbook preemptive denial strategy. Destroy the enemy's means of attack before they ever get the chance to use it. Here comes strategy number 2, intelligence coup precision targeting. This strike wasn't a guess. It was the direct result of highly actionable intelligence on Iran's operational plans. The US layered signals intelligence from RC-135, maritime surveillance from P-8 Poseidons, and human intelligence. This allowed them to pinpoint exactly which vessels were the mine layers where they were parked and exactly when they were most vulnerable. That brings us to strategy number 3, striking vessels while moored. Most of these targets were actually docked at the time of the attack. Hitting a stationary ship is infinitely easier, safer, and more precise than hunting down a moving target out on the open ocean. Plus, it completely eliminates the risk of a missed shot causing an unintended international incident in a heavily trafficked strait. Strategy number 4 is the dual target doctrine. By hitting both the mine-laying vessels and the mine storage facilities at the exact same time, the operation guaranteed that even if replacement boats were available, there wouldn't be any ordnance left to arm them. It's a layered approach designed to maximize the strategic impact of a single coordinated operation. The US didn't just use one weapon. They threw the entire playbook at the Mosquito fleet. They used Hellfire missiles fired from drones against small boats, and launched long-range cruise missiles from Navy destroyers right off the coast. And to finish the job, heavy strategic command bombers dropped massive 2,000-pound, GPS-guided bunker busters to completely wipe out the boats while they were still sitting in their storage facilities. This is a US Central Command combat footage where a Hellfire missile engaging enemy mine-laying vessels. Pausing on this still image confirms its identity as a Hellfire, a munition frequently deployed from this MQ-9 Reaper drone. This vessel is one of 16 destroyed by this type of munition. It underscores a crucial point. Understanding how these small missiles operate is key to understanding how they turn the tide of a conflict and destroy a small navy with a small drone. Let's take a look inside and see exactly how they fire these missiles. He uses a thumbstick to zoom in on a heat signature, locking onto the target. When he's ready, there's a trigger button just below the joystick. A simple squeeze launches the weapon, guiding it directly to its intended target. These enemy targets firing at the MQ-9 reappear, clearly lit up on the screen, as you can see here. Even for civilians, there are countless bad actors targeting our computers, which is why we need a defense mechanism, just like the MQ-9 multi-targeting radar system. Similarly, this VPN identifies and blocks suspicious email with a harmful download link. In this case, it will alert you immediately. Beyond that, it includes a robust antivirus software to shield your devices from viruses, malware, and tracking by ads, bots, or third parties. Finally, with Surfshark VPN, a single subscription covers not just you, but also your friends or even your entire city if you wanted. Go to our link surfshark.com/AITelly. By buying through the promo link and using the code AITelly, you will get 4 extra months to successfully track and hit the speedboat. Let's take a look at Hellfire missile tracking and guidance.
Hold on, man. It's time for my shameful plug. Make sure to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Let's get more people on the conversation by double tapping that screen. Like I said, we're just going over this AI Telly video to let you pretty much know the problem with open up the Strait of Hormuz and all this good stuff.
The AGM-114 Hellfire missile is a precision weapon guided either by semi-active laser or millimeter wave radar. This means it can accurately lock onto and follow targets, even ones moving quickly on water, like a speedboat. The MQ-9 Reaper drone uses advanced onboard sensors and targeting pods to continuously track the boat, sending real-time information to the missile after it has been launched. The drone's sophisticated systems can calculate the boat's speed, direction, and maneuvers, allowing the missile's guidance to predict where the boat will be and adjust its flight path to hit the target. Speed and maneuverability matching. Hellfire missiles travel at speeds greater than Mach 1, over 760 miles per hour, 1,225 kilometers per hour, which far outpaces the speed of the boat. This allows the missile to quickly close the distance and make fine adjustments during its flight to strike a moving target. The missile's guidance system is designed to compensate for evasive maneuvers by tracking the reflected laser or radar signals bouncing off the boat. It continuously adjusts for changes in direction and speed as it hones in on the target. Paired with the MQ-9 Reaper drone's continuous real-time tracking, enable the missile to accurately follow, anticipate, and destroy a fast-moving boat traveling at speeds up to 69 miles per hour. When you add it all up, the U.S. has taken out over 60 warships and submarines in a span of just 10 days. First up is the Jashin. When this Iranian fast attack craft approached a U.S. surface action group, it fired a U.S.-made Harpoon missile, a remnant from pre-revolution armed sails. The U.S. cruiser USS Wainwright successfully evaded it using electronic countermeasures and chaff. The U.S. ships instantly returned fire, sinking the Jashin in what became...
Like I said, a Navy from the 70s and an Air Force literally from the 60s, and we're bragging about the complete destruction of it. I'm like, bro, you're acting like they had a modern day Navy.
In the world's first ever missile duel between warships. Then came the Sahand. This Iranian frigate sailed out to challenge the U.S. fleet and fired at passing aircraft. The response was immediate. Navy attack jets and the destroyer USS Joseph Strauss swarmed the vessel, pummeling the Sahand with missiles and heavy bombs until it caught fire and ultimately sank after its own munitions detonated. Later that same afternoon, a third ship, the Savalan, tried its luck. The frigate fired a surface-to-air missile at a U.S. jet. The pilot simply dodged the missile, looped right back around, and dropped a 500-pound laser-guided bomb directly down the ship's exhaust stack. The internal explosion completely crippled the vessel. The overarching goal behind all of this was to secure the Strait of Hormuz, the single most critical choke point for global oil. We make original videos from scratch and animated by...
And even with all that effort, they were still able to close the strait because, well, like I said, no oil tanker want to risk going through the strait right now because of the missiles and drones. Still sadly. All right, let's get back into Fox News.
The campaign is not over yet, but it is already clear. We have historic achievements. I want to remember where we were. Iran tried to encircle us with a stranglehold. Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Assad regime in Syria, the militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen. Iran itself, they wanted to strangle us, and we are strangling them. They threatened us with annihilation, and they are now fighting to...
Come on now, bro. Let's be real. The reason why the Houthis exist is because you guys been trying to take southern Lebanon, well, since the 60s. So yeah, Israel, through the aggression of Israel in Lebanon, yeah, that's why Hezbollah exists. And I mean, when it comes to the Houthis, I'm not really sure about them. But I'll tell you this, Israel definitely created Hezbollah through their aggression, and they've created Hamas through their direct financing. No, literally, like they directly finance Hamas. So crazy.
Survive. We have prepared them. We still have more to do.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu there saying the campaign is not over yet. Guys.
So, Trey, can you give us any update on, obviously we saw the USS Peterson and Murphy go into the strait to try and clear a path for those trapped hundreds of tankers. Have we seen any increase in movement in maritime traffic?
Yeah, there's been a little bit of increase in traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, but notably yesterday, U.S. Central Command said they've started an operation to clear mines in the strait, sending 2 Navy destroyers through this area. So it's a significant signal, again, about the control of the strait and the ability of the U.S. Navy. But also when you speak about the Iranian Navy, the president is correct. Much of it is at the bottom of the sea. And the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said a quote from a previous war that rings true today. He said, "We've agreed to split the strait with the Iranian Navy. We'll take the upper half. And he's talking about the fact that many of the vessels are now at the bottom of the sea following the 40-day campaign against the Iranian Navy and the IRGC.
So Trey, what's next? Are we expected that we're going to just start seeing bombs dropping again, or are there going to be attempts at further negotiations?
The bottom line here is it's up to President Trump about what happens next. But the Iranians made clear, as they have in the past at the negotiating table, that their efforts are not going to reach any sort of solution. And when we look at the issues that we're talking about here, these are very critical issues.
AKA, we're not going to get a ceasefire until, well, it sounds like until we show Iran some type of good faith. AKA, we probably have to lift sanctions. And America on our side, we're pretty much saying that, no, you guys got to show us good faith and you got to give up your enriched uranium. And maybe that's just like, I don't know. Oh, well, open the Strait of Hormuz. So one side is saying lift the sanctions as a show of good faith, and the other side is saying, well, you got to open up the Strait of Hormuz as a sign of good faith. And Iran is like, well, yeah, we'll do that if you release the sanctions. And, you know, America, we're going to hit them with the oh, hell no, every time. So it is what it is on that note. Hopefully there is some type of, well, movement of position to a more reasonable side on the Iranian side. But we'll see, because it doesn't look like it, but hopefully so. And let's make sure we're double tapping that screen and liking the video, guys. Let's get more people on the conversation by double tapping that screen. Appreciate the support.
We're talking about Iran's nuclear program.
Let's see if we can get to 200 likes.
That their efforts are not going to reach any sort of solution. And when we look at the issues that we're talking about here, these are very critical issues. We're talking about Iran's nuclear program, access in the Strait of Hormuz, and the idea of unfreezing assets. And we can start at the end of the list and work backwards. But when you look at the assets, President Trump is not going to do what President Obama did, which is give the Iranians billions of dollars that would allow them to rebuild their military and nuclear programs. You have the issue of the Strait of Hormuz.
Hold up, bro. Hold on now. I got to put you in timeout for a little bit. This can't be spamming. We love Jews in the chat. Like, we do love Jews. Just not the Likud party. That's far right. That's pretty much racist towards Arabs in Israel. That's it. It's just the, the Bibi Netanyahu regime. That's all. Those are the only group of Israelis that we don't like. Okay, that's it. The rest of them we cool with. I don't really have no hatred for Jews. I have no hatred for Israelis. I just have a hatred for their government and the party that's running that government. That's it. That's all.
And the Iranians have been using this choke point as their last piece of leverage at the negotiating table, because much of their military, their ballistic missile stockpile, and other parts of the IRGC were decimated during Operation Epic Fury. And then this issue of Iran's nuclear program. I've been talking with regional sources, and they say it's not enough for Iran to simply agree that they won't create a nuclear weapon. This source told me early today that officials need to go into Iran and actually obtain the nuclear material, this highly enriched uranium that the Iranians admit is enough to create 11 nuclear bombs, remove that material, and then ensure that there is a dismantlement process that would ensure that they cannot in the future create more enriched uranium. And so the Iranians, at least at this point, according to reports, appear unwilling to adhere to these terms that were laid out, these red lines by the Trump administration. And this is the point in which the president will have to decide if there is any room to negotiate further or if the war will restart.
Trey, two-part question. Our allies there in the Gulf region have been an incredible asset to us, of course, more than the other NATO representatives for sure. But it seems as if Iran has been particularly hostile to their pressure. So what are your sources telling you about the influence that the Gulf allies have on this chapter of the negotiations? And when Iran says they can't find all the mines, do we believe that they're even trying?
I don't know about that, but
the short answer is no, as it relates to the mines. And I spoke with the president about both of these topics in recent weeks. And he said, look, it's very challenging because they have these small mine laying vessels and many of them have been destroyed, but they can use a few $1,000 mine and it can disrupt billions of dollars worth of global shipping. And so that's an incredibly important part of this equation. Then you have Gulf countries. And the president told me a few weeks ago, he was most surprised by the fact that the Iranians were directly targeting these Gulf countries like Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, and Qatar with drones and missiles, given the fact that they are not even directly involved in this conflict. But again, this speaks to how unstable the regime is and their inability to look forward what's best for their own country. And we've seen that just in the past 48 hours. They came to Islamabad, Pakistan, and they were unwilling to make concessions. And we heard even today, the Speaker of Iran's parliament, one of the main negotiators for the Iranian regime, tried to blame the United States for these talks not working out. The reality is the Iranian regime was...
I'll be real with you. I blame both sides because let's be real. Like, we weren't going to be taking those sanctions off Iran for them to open the Strait of Hormuz. And let's be real, though. Iran was not going to open the Strait of Hormuz just for nothing. And like I said, the problem with this message is that it goes to show what Pete Hegseth has been selling us is a load of BS, because he's saying they're over here, they're capitulating, they're begging for a ceasefire. Well, then why are they over here walking away from a deal? Like, they should be giving us everything we want and more, but they're not. And like I said, that goes to show you what's actually going on in the Middle East. It's not going as well as Pete Hegseth frames it to be, or Donald Trump, sadly.
Largely destroyed. Dozens of top officials, including their own supreme leader, taken out in a series of strikes during Operation Epic Fury. Their production lines for the missiles and drones that they used traditionally as leverage at the negotiating table have been destroyed. And that is why they're so focused on the Strait of Hormuz, because President Trump holds all of the cards here. Yeah. And the president was very clear this weekend, he will win either way, whether at the negotiating table or on the battlefield.
Yeah, he holds those cards. And if indeed we open up that strait, Iran no longer holds the Strait of Hormuz hostage card either. Trey Yingst, Live Force in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you very much.
And I would love for us to take that, a card away from them, because then we can get them to do what we want them to do a lot easier. Like, guys, this is not me being anti-American. Trust me, I want everything to work for us, like in the best way possible. But honestly, getting into this war is not, sadly, it's not going to work out the best way for us because we've underestimated the opponent. I mean, people out here didn't even think Iran can close the Strait of Hormuz. People out here didn't even think Iran could last this long. So they've already exceeded our expectations, and I'm wondering how long can they keep it up for? Because they can't keep this up forever. But the problem is, though, it's an asymmetric warfare. So it's not about winning. It's not about beating the United States. It's about surviving the United States.
Thank you, Trey. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about all the ways that the advantages are accruing to President Trump here. Not only, as you mentioned, the allies in the area are more fed up with Iran than they ever have been. The country has been decimated. The military has been decimated. And every day that goes on, people figure out other ways to get energy from other places on the planet or around the Strait of Hormuz if needed, so that hostage becomes less valuable.
Very much so. And when you look out, I was reading some of the oil and gas, social media folks, and they're saying, look, already the Gulf states are looking at pipeline bypasses. Yeah. And when you look 5-10 years down the road, it's really going to be a bigger impact. And remember, the Strait of Hormuz fuels almost 90% of Asian markets, right? So this doesn't affect the U.S.
Yeah.
What was it? Japan gets about 80% of their oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. So it's really hurting them. Like, a lot of countries are really getting hit by this. America, we're getting hit with higher gas prices, but countries are getting hit with higher gas prices, being asked to restrict their energy use and more. So, let's be real. You think you're going through it. Trust me. Other countries are going through a whole lot worse. And guys, let's make sure we're double tapping that screen and liking the video. And if you want to know what I mean, well, this is what I mean.
The world was warned this could happen. And now it actually is. The Philippines just became the first country in the entire world to declare a state of emergency because of fuel shortages linked to the war in the Middle East. This is because a staggering 98% of the fuel that the Philippines imports needs to pass through the Gulf region. And it's not just them. The whole world is now facing its biggest restrictions on fuel since COVID. Slovenia just became the first EU state to begin fuel rationing, so you can now only buy 50 liters max of fuel per day. Meanwhile, the IEA has now advised their 32 member countries, which include the likes of Australia, Germany, Japan, France, and the UK, to implement various fuel-saving measures, including even lowering their highway speeds by 10 kilometers an hour. China have temporarily banned fuel exports to protect their domestic supplies. Australia are facing what's described as a national crisis, where hundreds of their petrol stations are running dry from panic buying and shortages. South Korea have begun considering work-from-home policies and have also introduced price limits for fuel for the first time in decades, along with other countries like Croatia, Hungary, Brazil, and Thailand. Cuba are really struggling this week with numerous countrywide power cuts only made worse by the fuel shortages. Japan will begin their biggest ever release of oil from their strategic reserves this week. And as for the United States, well, Trump was asked about the Strait of Hormuz, and he said this.
We don't need it. We have a lot of oil. We're the #1 producer anywhere in the world times 2.
Huh. All right, though.
In October of 2002.
Now let's get into some real TDS, guys. So these guys over here at MS Now, we used to be MSNBC, but they got bought. So now they're M Snow. So, all right, let's get right into it.
The United States Congress granted President George W. Bush the authority to use military force against Iraq. Bush and his administration.
Make sure to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Appreciate the support, by the way. But let's make sure we can get more people in the conversation by double tapping that screen, pushing the video in the algorithm, and also subscribe to the channel by hitting the icon above. All right, let's keep it going.
In October of 2002, the United States Congress granted President George W. Bush the authority to use military force against Iraq. Bush and his administration's main justification for that request was based on intelligence indicating that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. 4 months later, the Secretary of State, Colin Powell, presented that intelligence to the international community at the United Nations. The next month, the United States, along with Britain, Australia, and Poland, launched Shock and Awe, the start of the invasion of Iraq. Now, as we now know, the intelligence that led to that war was entirely wrong. In 2005, a bipartisan presidential commission concluded that, quote, the intelligence community was dead wrong in almost all of its pre-war judgments about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. This was a major intelligence failure, end quote. A major intelligence failure that got us into an 8-year war. Now, in the case of the current war in Iran, the inverse is true. The intelligence has proven to be correct.
Yep.
President Trump just chose to disregard it.
Which is the sad reality of it, because it's almost disrespectful. It's just like, hold on. I mean, bro, we give so much money to the CIA. We spend so much money to have these assets out all around the world, and you're not going to listen to them? They're like, hold on. Our CIA tells you that Iran's not an imminent threat. They're not going towards a nuclear weapon. And instead, you listen to the Mossad, who wants to drag us into a regional conflict with Iran, who's been trying to do that for like, what, decades at this point. And you just decide that, oh, they're finally telling the truth after, what, over a decade of lying about this? Like, you're serious? And I mean, that's the problem there. Like, a lot of presidents said no to Israel to bomb Iran. Shoot, Iran even threatened Obama about and saying that they'll nuke Israel. And Obama told him, all right, cool, good luck with that. Hope it works out for you. And they end up not doing it. So I don't know why Trump let his ass get dragged into this. Well, I mean, I could speculate, but I'm not going to go too far into that.
The genesis of this was May 8th, 2018, when Trump withdrew the United States from the historic Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That's the JCPOA, which we will know better as the Iran nuclear deal.
And for those of you crying about 60% enrichment, you know, 60% enrichment was the deterrent. And let me give you the full timeline before you sit there and you criticize. So, you know, in 2015, when Barack Obama pretty much got these guys under the JCPOA, from 2015 to 2018, according to the IAEA inspectors, Iran was abiding by the deal. So there you go. Now, when Donald Trump in 2018 removed himself or removed the United States out of the deal, invoked the sanctions on Iran, so all within 2018. By 2019, the IRGC is now a terrorist group, and by 2020, we killed General Qasem Soleimani. Those are all active aggressions right after we got out of the JCPOA, and we violated our agreement on the JCPOA, not Iran. Because I don't know how dumb you got to be to think that Iran violated it when we stopped doing our side of it first. We pulled out of it. We invoked sanctions on them. And that's the whole reason they were even in it. And then we decided that it was okay to put on 3 acts of aggressions towards them. And then in 2021, that's when they enriched to in 60%. That's when we found out. So what does that tell you? Because of our aggression, we've pushed Iran further and further towards a nuke. So what you guys are doing right now is probably going to get Iran a nuclear weapon, sadly. And Iran has already stated multiple times that this is supposed to be a deterrent that they've been ready to give away multiple times during negotiations. But for some reason, we moved the goalposts to their ballistic missiles. So, yeah, I'm sorry. But if this is about having Iran's nuclear capabilities under control, then sorry, but Obama had the right idea. He had them under the right deal as well.
Deal. That decision was made in spite of the intelligence from the United Nations and Trump's own administration certifying that Iran was abiding by the terms of the deal and that the deal was working to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. As a result of that withdrawal and subsequent reinstallation of harsh economic sanctions, Iran started enriching uranium again, past the level needed for civilian use. And by 2023, UN inspectors found that Iran was getting close.
Yep. And you see the problem here? This was after we violated the JCPOA. Well, yes, I'm going to say us, because for some reason, mainstream media won't tell y'all the truth. When you violate a deal, how do you violate a deal, guys? Do you know how? By pretty much going against what you agreed to. We agreed that if Iran let in these inspectors to look over their nuclear capabilities, they'll report back to us on, we'll release the sanctions. We said F all that. We pretty much expected them to abide by the deal when we put back on the sanctions and exit out of the deal ourselves. So I'm sorry, but if you expected Iran to follow a deal that we weren't even following, you're kind of slow. Or maybe you just operate in a dishonest way and you're just a bad person. Like, I don't know, either or.
Closer to obtaining weapons-grade uranium, which is exactly what the intelligence community said would happen if we pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. And it's been the exact same story with this current war. As Shane Harris writes in The Atlantic, quote, the intelligence community was accurate and consistent in its pre-war judgments about Iran's capabilities and intentions to attack the United States and its allies. Contrary to what President Trump has said to justify his decision, the intelligence showed that the Iranian regime was not preparing to use a nuclear weapon. It did not have ballistic missiles capable of reaching the United States. And in response to U.S.
You know, so funny, there are still some people who, and look, this is why I watch both sides of media, because, you know, they don't lie all the time. They don't. Actually, this is coming from The Atlantic. This is coming from an article. So this isn't coming from MS Now. This is coming from an Atlantic article. This is coming from an Atlantic article by Shane Harris. So take MS Now out of it and just read The Atlantic. The intelligence showed that the Iranian regime was not preparing to use a nuclear weapon and did not have ballistic missile capability of reaching the United States and in response to a U.S. military attack. So we've been knew this, but for some reason, people want to lie to you and act like, oh, they were just 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. Oh, as soon as they get a nuke, they'll strike us. I mean, bro, they said the same thing about North Korea. And what did they do? They made a nuke just so we leave them the F alone. Kind of sounds like Iran's going for the same plan. Because it sounds like, you know, you could be any type of monarch, dictatorship. Don't matter. If you got a nuke, we'll leave you alone.
Military attack, Iran was likely to strike at neighboring countries in the Persian Gulf and try to close the Strait of Hormuz, precipitating a global economic crisis. All of this was known before the war and presented.
And here's the thing, though. You know, it's so funny when people say, what you said, Iran officials said. No, Iran officials never said that. Because I'm sorry, but don't you think our CIA, our intelligence network, all of our assets in Iran would have picked up on that before yo ass? So, and please, cite where you're getting it from. Because we're citing CIA, we're citing U.S. intelligence telling us this. So you're fighting against your own intelligence agency, by the way, if you're an American citizen.
President Trump. This was an intelligence success, end quote. This was an intelligence success. The failure lies with President Trump. Harris adds, quote, some of Trump's allies have criticized him for not making a public case for the war, as the Bush administration did. But if he had accurately presented the intelligence, the facts would have argued against attacking Iran. Perhaps that's why the president ignored and later misrepresented what his advisors told him, end quote. One of those advisors, his own National Counterterrorism Center director, Joe Kent, a former Green Beret and a MAGA loyalist, recently resigned over the war, writing on social media that, quote, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, end quote.
I mean, bro, here's the worst part about it. Like Joe Kent, what was it? Ex-military, well, Green Beret and all that good stuff. He was ex-CIA, ex-counterterrorism. So the guy most qualified, one of the most qualified guys to speak on the subject, was pretty much kept out of briefings. So he wasn't allowed to give his intelligence to the president when it came down to these briefings. I know there's a lot of dumbasses who said, oh, well, he was left out of the briefing, so what does he know? Are you dumb? No. Those briefings were to inform the president, not to inform Joe Kent. He already gets his information from he's the head of counterterrorism. He gets his information from the CIA and different departments in DHS.
It's not just that. Look at one of Trump's stated goals, regime change. About a week before the start of the strikes, a classified report from the U.S. National Intelligence Council warned that the Iranian regime was unlikely to be toppled, even by an extensive assault like the one we saw play out prior to the current ceasefire.
I mean, here's a wild part.
A report in the Washington Post.
We don't even know if a nuke would stop these guys at a certain point. Like, we don't know. It's like, we don't even know if we dropped the nuke on these guys. We don't even know if that would stop them. But, hey. Oh, guys, let's make sure to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Let's see if we can go ahead and get to how much likes we're at right now. Let's even get to 200 likes by double tapping that screen and liking the video, guys. Appreciate the support. We're at 156. We get about 44 more. So double tap that screen.
So unless you count replacing one Ayatollah Khamenei with a younger, more hardline Ayatollah Khamenei as regime change, once again, the intelligence was right. As Harris concludes, quote, 2 decades ago, a president embraced information that turned out to be wrong and disaster followed. Today, a president disregards assessments that proved to be right and the predictable comes to pass. There's a failure of intelligence there, too.
And that's what I'm saying. It's so crazy how Americans are going against our own intelligence gathered by the CIA, our own intelligence network. And you're taking the word of the Mossad, not the word of our hardworking Americans. You're taking the word of Israelis over your Americans. Like, I'm sorry, but don't you kind of like feel like your loyalty is a bit like, I don't know, displaced? We're believing Mossad agents, Israelis, over our own American citizens that are in the CIA. And if we're just going to disbelieve whatever the Mossad says, then defund the CIA. What do we even need it for if we're just going to believe the Mossad over them?
That's not the kind we're used to seeing, end quote. Joining me now to discuss this is John Brennan. He's a former director of the CIA under President Obama. He led the agency from 2013 to 2017. He's also a senior national security advisor and intelligence analyst for MS Now. Director Brennan, thank you for being with us. I just can't get past this point. This is not a failure of intelligence. This administration had information that has played out completely as we're seeing it. How did we get to this?
Well, that's a good question, Ali. As you pointed out, the intelligence community failed in the run-up to the invasion of Iraq, but the intelligence community processes were overhauled, and they learned a lot of very painful lessons as a result. But looking at this war, this very needless war, every intelligence professional who had worked on the region or on nuclear matters or whatever, I think came to the same conclusion. First of all, Iran did not have a nuclear weapon. It was not close to, in fact, developing a nuclear weapon. Yes, it had highly enriched uranium, which was a concern. But
I mean, yes, and this is why Obama didn't go to war with Iran, because, his intelligence, bro, Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. They're not close to going to a nuclear weapon. And trust me, bro, if they were having a weapons program, we would catch them by the time they get to that 90%. So, I mean, what are they saying? And Iran hasn't had a nuclear weapon at all. They haven't even pushed towards a nuclear weapon at all. All they have is this 60% enrichment, and that's due to the aggression from 2018 to 2020.
In terms of the impact of an air campaign on Iran, I think there was unanimity.
And yes, guys, it is an act of aggression to put on sanctions on a country, designate their military group as a terrorist group, and of course, to kill a general. I mean, yes, those are acts of aggression.
In terms of this was not going to bring about a regime change. But this is, consistent with Donald Trump's past. He has long been dismissive of intelligence community products. He has long disparaged the intelligence community professionals. I think it's all part of his narcissism and megalomania that he believes he's the most brilliant person in the room, and he goes on his gut instinct, as opposed to what the intelligence community and what the facts really are quite evident in terms of what would happen with this disastrous pursuit of this war campaign.
So, Director Brennan,
I'll be real with you. Brennan's the son of a bitch. I ain't gonna lie. He did make up the whole was it the Steele dossier. He pretty much created fake intelligence. He should be in jail. He should be. But to be quite honest with you, he just had a hatred for Trump. We all know that was BS. But in all honesty, he's right. And I hate to admit it, but he's right about this. Like, we've had intelligence for years that Iran was not going towards a nuclear bomb. They don't have a nuclear bomb. The religious fatwa was still in place from 2004 that said it's a sin to have a nuclear bomb and chemical weapons, by the way. So, where's all this coming from? And of course, it's coming from the Mossad, who's telling us, oh, no, none of that's true. You don't believe your CIA, believe us. And these guys have been trying to drag us into war with Iran for a while now, before Trump. Shit, before Obama.
I think it's important for our viewers to understand that this information about what we knew about Iran, some of it's classified, but a lot of it was fully out there. I want to play for you an exchange that took place between John Ossoff and the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, in Congress before this.
So the assessment of the intelligence community is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated by last summer's airstrikes.
Yes.
In the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote,
oh, guys, make sure to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. If you have any questions, comments, jokes, or disagreements, I'll be happy to read it out loud and engage with it. Just $2 and up. Appreciate the support, guys.
There has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
The White House stated on March 1st of this year that this war was launched and was, quote, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, end quote. That's a statement from the White House. Quote, the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime?
The intelligence community assessed that Iran maintained the intention to rebuild and to continue to grow their nuclear enrichment capability.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False.
That is definitely false. I mean, bro, what the fuck we got an intelligence service for, lady? Like, Tulsi, what are you doing? Like, you were the main person going out against Donald Trump when he got out of the JCPOA. You told Trump that he should hop back in the JCPOA. And you said he should put his pride to the side and get back in it. So it's wild that I'm just seeing her here right now, just walk back all that. And if you don't believe me, check this out.
President Trump, your Iran strategy has been ill-advised and very short-sighted. You need to change course now and get back into the Iran nuclear agreement before it's too late. Set aside your pride. Set aside your political calculations for the good of our country. Just do the right thing. President Trump.
So it's kind of crazy. You should go from this to just pretty much not even being able to assess that. Well, do you know if it's a threat or not? You know, this is what we have the intelligence community for, to get this information for us. And you're telling us only the president? No, that's false. The president isn't the end-all, be-all determiner of what's constituted as an imminent threat, or trust me. I mean, all the president got to do is pick their favorite country they don't like, and they'll be able to go into war with them under that pretext of, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, Greenland's an imminent threat, guys. We're going to go to attack Greenland. Like, what? You got any proof? No, just I'm the president. I said they are, so we're going in. Like, what? Like I said, it's the BS they try to sell you.
Director Brennan, I want to ask you about that last sentence. So Tulsi Gabbard was pretty clear that Iran didn't pose an imminent nuclear threat. And when asked by John Ossoff, she said the only person who can determine what is or isn't an imminent threat is the president. I would have thought the president can decide what he wants to do about it and what the American military will do about it. But is the determination of that not left to our intelligence agencies?
Yes, Tulsi Gabbard's statement was absurd. It is the intelligence community's responsibility, obligation to identify threats to U.S. national security. And certainly in this case, in terms of Iran's nuclear enrichment program, it was the assessment of the U.S. intelligence community for many years that Iran was not able, at this point, be able to fabricate a nuclear warhead and then marry it with some type of delivery system for a weapon. And so their lies are obvious. Their own assessment assessments really undercut their rationale, their explanations, their foolish efforts to try to provide some type of rationale or basis for this war. But clearly, it was the intelligence community's continued assessment that Iran didn't pose an imminent threat. There was no reason, no casus belli in terms of going to war, but they continued to just allow Donald Trump, who has such ignorance of the region and I think tremendous incompetence, as well as failure to understand what the intelligence is providing. He makes the decision single-handedly, and according to the recent reporting that's out there, as they went around the White House Situation Room, nobody was willing to say, Mr. President, this is a bad idea. We should not do this.
So Donald Trump said early in this campaign, he was asked by a reporter that people are getting frustrated by the high price of gas, and he said, "Well, they'll be really happy that someone can't throw a nuclear armed missile at us."
And that was like the dumbest thing he could have said, because I was like, "Bro, are you dumb? You're pretty much saying you want us to deal with high gas prices from a threat that never freaking existed. So you want us to pay more in gas for a threat that never existed, that our intelligence service says that don't exist." And this is what you're selling to the American people. And sadly, some of them are buying it. But most of us who understand what's going on, we're like, no, our intelligence service told us, no, that's not what's going on. You're over here telling us that they were going to throw a missile at us. So now we got to deal with higher gas prices. And our own intelligence service is saying that's bullshit. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, this is why he's sinking in approval ratings.
Phrasing here. As you pointed out, there's two parts to this. There has to be a nuclear warhead, and there has to be a delivery system capable of reaching the United States for there to be a threat that Iran could throw, as Donald Trump says, a nuclear armed missile at the United States. Both of those things currently are false. It doesn't mean that Iran wouldn't like to have it or isn't working towards it, but we have determined that that's not actually a thing.
That's right. And Donald Trump's statements were asinine and intentionally, I think, misrepresenting the facts. As we well know, he is just a consistent liar on these issues. And to use these lies as the basis to go to war that led to the devastation
bro, and this war is over, he's going to get cooked. I mean, when they go in and they find out once again that Iran did not have a nuclear weapon system, that will once again, Donald Trump's going to get brought up on charges on that. It's like, bro, honestly, I doubt it.
What?